This is Metal Mike, and in this episode of the 80's Glam Metalcast, I talk with the king of power pop, Donnie Vie. We hear all about what he's up to today, and we talk about his rise to stardom with Enuff Z'Nuff, and we hear about all those classic albums from the late 80s and early 90s. Check it out. Donnie, welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm okay. Yeah, it's morning for me, but you know, I mean, 'cause I work at night. My whole thing is flipped around, but I'm okay.
Perfect, man. Well, I've been up since 6 in the morning, so for me it is night.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's about when I'm cleaning up or whatever I'm doing. You know, what I mean, recording or something. It's about packing up around 6.
That's funny. So, hey, man, it's a new year. Well, what are you working on for 2021?
New songs. Putting my own company together, with merch and songs and releasing songs and publishing and what have you. Possibly there's things I could do for a few bucks. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. And while I'm also looking at a catalog deal for my solo catalog, we just did the Enuff Z'Nuff entire catalog deal, and I'm looking at one of those. And just writing and recording a bunch of new songs, and whatever the year, however it unfolds, whatever is the most logical thing for me to do at that time is what I'll be doing.
So do you want to do a new album, or do you want to just do singles, or what's the plan?
It depends on what my situation is. If I'm doing it my own company, releasing them myself, I probably would do singles because it's pretty expensive to make a record. You know what I mean? It's nothing compared to what it used to be, but there is expenses if you want to do it right. You know, and there's a couple of things. You gotta have a studio for a drummer. You gotta hire out that. And you gotta definitely hire an engineer and guy to engineer and mix. And so that shit all costs money, to do a 10-song thing. It's a little time consuming, and like the Pledge Music thing I tried last time, Pledge Music disappeared with all the money and just fucked everybody, and we got fucked, and so that can't happen again. But if I get a label deal, there's a good chance that they would at least advance that expense, till you sell it and recoup it. But then I would, I've got enough songs to make a record. To make a great record right now, you get just the same amount of exposure and juice, around all the pods and interviews and magazine things and stuff like that with one song as you do with a whole album. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And nobody buys records anymore. They just basically download or listen to a new song on YouTube or wherever you can listen to them free, and download them and shit. Yeah. So it's like that's what's basically happening these days, and to make a whole record is in my position would be pointless unless there was finances to do it, and realistically, and it wasn't an outrageous amount. You know what I mean? If you work with a label, they also have something to say about what you do. Sure.
Yeah, funny when you say podcast. I know you did a shout out on Twitter, and you mentioned my podcast, so I appreciated that. But you go on a lot of podcasts. Do you feel like it's a viable way to get the word out there?
It's instead of radio interviews that you used to do, and hard copy magazine interviews. I used to do a million of those. You know what I mean? Those are a thing of the past, and now it's podcasts and. There's a few radios, podcasts, basically podcasts and shit. That's about all the interviews I do now. Yours surprised me that it was only the phone. Because they're all on like Zoom or something. They're all video, and it's a lot more effort setting up all this shit. And right now I get to look like I just got up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. It's like me. I'm in my pajamas.
I do a lot of them. Michael is he's great at handling the social media shit and going out and soliciting that stuff, he's really great at and really building my following and stuff. So, if we do launch the own company and start doing things, he's real good to make sure that it has some success.
That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about the back catalog. So basically, from what I'm hearing, is the Enuff Z'Nuff catalog, aside from the first two Adco albums, are going to be coming out. They're out now through Cleopatra, right?
Two of them are. Dissidents was the last Enuff Z'Nuff record that I made with the band. They released that first, and that sold out immediately. they're in their second pressing on that, and I guess just last week they released another one called Peach Fuzz, and I imagine that's doing pretty well. And it's cool to have those on vinyl. They've never been on vinyl before, and it's also good to have all those records that were scattered around on these shitty labels and this and that, and untraceable with the money and all that stuff. You know, you never even hear from them and shit. And it's great to have those all corralled back up in somewhere where, you know, they're getting the attention, they're getting the love, and we're getting the sheets, spreadsheets, and what we're supposed to get on those things, you know. But like I said, a lot of them, most of them haven't been. Matter of fact, all of these haven't been released on vinyl. And the box set, they're doing a box set too, which is going to be cool. And I'm hoping they make a one with the 40 vinyls. That'd be a great box set, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So now with this whole process, and even with some of your songs that you've done recently, you've worked with Chip. How's the relationship? Things good with you and Chip right now?
It's good as long as we're you know, this relationship we have right now is successful under the circumstances. You know, is you know, we basically reached the point after so long together, and you know, he's got his things, his quirks and downfalls, and I have mine, and after all those years together and all those hard times and a lot of desperate times, and both of our issues, you know, getting exaggerated. I prefer not to be involved with him every day, as he prefers not to be involved with me every day. And he likes doing his thing, I like doing my thing. But at least because of that Cleopatra deal, we ended up having to come to discussions and talk again. And yeah, we found a way to at least make it friendly and we try to remember the love instead of the hate, and you know, help each other out if we want, and which is a lot better than toxic than it used to be, at least for me, you know, because I hated his ass. I fucking hated him. There was some really violating stuff happening, and I just couldn't believe it, you know, from the so-called brother. But you know, we talked about all that shit, and it's worked out.
That's great to hear, man. Great to hear. Well, hey, this is the 80s Glam Metalcast, so we do have to go back and talk a little bit about the 80s. That's just what we do on this podcast.
Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you whatever I can remember.
So let's start to revisit 1989. So you got major label release. You got videos on MTV. Walk us through just how you were feeling at this point. It had to be incredible.
The best way to describe that would be everywhere you go is a party for you. I mean, and it's a big party for you. Anywhere you go to a club, you go to, you know, somewhere, you go to anywhere. It's a big party for you, and everybody's, you know, everybody loves you. The flavor of the month, and you get in everywhere, and everything. People give you all this shit free that costs, you know, when you don't have any money, and you know, just playing everywhere. We're very busy, and you know, not at home like for earlier parts of our lives, you know, with the family and whatever's going on at home. And it's like I said, just getting on a bus all together, you know, some just buddies and brothers and musicians and our crew and stuff, and getting on a bus and taking on the, you know, conquering the world for a while, you know. And we did, while we were up and running in the good days. We were kicking ass, you know. We were always really great band, you know. But yeah, it was so much fun. But it also came with a lot of excess of baggage that was impossible to shake for a long time as well, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So this album really didn't sound like a lot of the rest of the 80s hard rock bands that were out. I mean, you guys definitely were infusing some of the psychedelic sounds and the Beatles. Who are some other influences, your early influences that showed out on that album?
I could say basically it wasn't very many 80s glam metal bands. You know, I mean, I liked, you know, like the classic stuff, you know, from the 60s, like the good stuff, the melodic rock and shit, the Motown. I liked a lot of Motown, you know, Jackson 5, Sam Cooke, Stevie Wonder. I liked a lot of that, and lots of Beatles and the British Invasion shit. And then when we got into the 70s, all that killer shit, you know what I mean? And because bands were still evolving and still growing and changing and shit like that. At that time, there were rock stars and shit, and all of that stuff. Those were all an influence. And and then when the 80s came, Van Halen was one I loved. I loved Van Halen, Motley Crue, Poison. I even begun to love Poison, you know, especially touring with those guys and shit, you know. And like Warrant, the same thing. But none of the other ones I really knew one from the other, you know.
Mm-hmm. Who had the idea to do the image that way? So, I mean, you kind of took some of the glam elements and then, you know, you mixed it with some of the 60s stuff. Whose idea was that?
Well, for the most part, a lack of real thought and planning put into that. You know, as far as everybody involved, you know, as far as Chip and I were concerned, we'd never ever envisioned that, you know, as our look or our genre or anything like that. With Derek and Vic, that kind of came with the territory. Mm-hmm. With their, you know, Derek with the gigantic flat hair. He looked like all the guitar. He looked like you couldn't find him at Friday night at the Rainbow. You know what I mean? Just a bad. And Vic, you know, total Poison, Motley Crue, you know, fan. So and that's what was going on MTV, and that's what was going on in around the clubs and stuff. And so Chip and I, you know, without really knowing any better, are just kind of getting on the bus for that one. We did that, and the label didn't seem to say anything about it. And a couple of the previous labels that we were showcasing for, like Geffen, first thing they said, well, we're gonna have to pass on this. But the guy came out for a showcase. He says, when we got in the limo, he goes, man, if you just look like that on stage, you know how I looked when I got into the limo after the show and stuff, you know, jeans and t-shirt and shit, like a leather jacket. He's like, it would make sense. He goes, it'd be fucking 10 times better. He said, that look, he goes, we can't deal with that. But then in the same breath, there was other labels that were like, they liked that. So hearing that, you know, from a label, doesn't really rub you right then after a big show and everything like that. You know, we were pretty popular already in Chicago and stuff, and you know, we had management with money and shit like that. But which that too, the original manager and stuff made comments about that. You know, you guys look like a bunch of pussies, love girls and stuff. But I don't know. A lot of it was about getting the girls in those days, and that's what was getting the girls, and the jeans and the other shit wasn't getting the girls, you know, or at least the groupies and the whores, at least, because that's what you're interested in when you're a bad boy, you know. you don't want anything of quality. They're too smart, and you know, it's too hard on you when they leave. Yeah, I really is not a fan of that glam shit, and I shaked it as quickly as I could, and that went against my instincts, and so did a lot of things with the band in the early days. But such a big opportunity came so young, and so, you know, I was very inexperienced, but very young, and that was what you dream about, you know what I mean? So we were going to walk away from that on being the one guy that's saying, hey, I don't like the way this looks, you know what I mean? And like some leather pants and a leather jacket at least, you know what I mean? But those clothes, and Chip wore my hand-me-downs. I had this plumber. He used to make the pants for me, and he'd just send me like 10 boxes of pants, and I didn't think I was even paying for them. I thought he was just making them for free, so I'd wear his pants. Turns out I was paying for them, but I had so many of them that I just give them the Chip. And there we were. And I look at those days, some of the posters and the pictures, our junk there in people's faces. It was ridiculous. But yeah, that was a huge mistake for us. That look, and something that really didn't cross our minds was that when that was going to get shuffled out and new stuff was going to come in, and that we would be in that. You know, we thought our songs and everything would be okay, you know, but that whole look and everything like that became taboo.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I want to touch on that because I have some of that written down. So you figure 1991 comes, the whole music industry starts to change, right? You guys put out Strength, which is an amazing album, but you look at like the video for Baby Loves You, and it's almost like you guys kind of still look the same. It's, you know, it's the big 80s show. It's got a lot of lights and all that kind of stuff. And to me, when I watch you guys on Letterman, it's way more toned down, you know? And I'm thinking like, okay, now don't get me wrong, I do the 80s glam metalcast. I love glam and I love all that stuff. But when I think of the music and I think of the way you guys came across on Letterman, I'm thinking like this is really the more appropriate way to go right now with the way the industry is going. You know what I mean? Do you think like you weren't really marketed the right way as you got into the 90s?
Well, Baby Loves You was the Strength album, and we still hadn't it still hadn't sunk in yet. You know, it's still, we didn't realize what was happening. You know, it's like a lot of artists did.
Right.
You know, and so we were still, you can see, though, I'm not wearing any makeup and shit like that other than what you have to wear for the lights. And the clothes I was wearing, I didn't consider glam at the time. You know, it was just flashy and flamboyant, and I'm an idiot. I have no fashion sense, so I wore flag pants and then different flag shirt. And when we went on Letterman, that was you know, after that, once we realized what happened, and basically when we went to Arista and Clive Davis, that's first thing he did was get rid of that look. You know what I mean? What was left of it, and that was that job was on Frigo and Fox and Chip. You know what I mean? Because they were that's what they were doing. And because I was, you know, like I said, you know, it's like the shit that came in with Nirvana and all that stuff like that. Before all that stuff with everybody else's input, that was me. That was me naturally. Right. You know, punk bum, drug addict, fucking, you know, bad boy, fucking street lizard, you know, like those guys, and was writing punky shit and stuff. And then, so I was like, damn, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think I went and changed to do that. And Clive Davis, one of the things he taught me and told me was, he goes, Donnie, because your picture belongs up. You show me around his office, all these big giants, and your picture belongs up there too. He goes, but the minute you do anything that's not natural, isn't just naturally you. He says, you start taking away from you that, you know, that glammy makeup and this and that. And he says, that shit, you know, it's got to go. And I don't think he had any intentions of keeping the rest of the band. I think his intentions were all he cared about was these power ballads and me. Mm-hmm. I mean, but I mean, I got that point real quickly, and I was really happy. And we went to there right by our side, video and shit. And once we were with, you know, I think at the other label, they basically built their label as on that 80s glam shit. You know what I mean? It was kind of their cornerstone and shit like that. And we were getting them attention and building them up because we were their main baby. Yep. And you know, so they just, like a lot of companies are, they're, you know, they got a machine. They see what's selling, what's making us money. All right, let's make more of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's a guy like Clive, you know, he is nonsense with that stuff, you know. And any other label, we talked to Geffen too again after when we left Atco, and but this time it was Kolodner that we were talking to, and he wanted to sign the band too, but his pitch to us was that he's got to take care of the band down to square one. You know, start with the image, the look, the sound of it, everything. He says that's because your band doesn't make any sense, and we're going to do this and that. And you probably, you know, don't even think about putting out a record for at least a year or so. As opposed to Clive Davis's pitch was, you guys are the greatest. This is the greatest song, blah, blah, blah. And so we went with that. Naturally, of course, did the stupid thing again, you know. But, yeah, because he did the Aerosmith. That's what he did with them. Right. You know what I mean? If that was what he was going to do with us. But, yeah, I was happy once all that shit was gone. Let me say one more thing, though, about that. Yeah, sure. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that 80s life. You know what I mean? Oh, that was a lot of fun. Because when that went out, the good times went out with the business, you know what I mean? Right. All the good times and all the parties and all the fun shit was gone, you know, so it was a lot of fun. Yeah, like back to Baby Loves You. I mean, when I hear that song, I mean, it always gets stuck in my head. To me, if like it should have been a #1 hit, if it was maybe just marketed different. I mean, that song has huge potential. If it had been pushed, that was already like the first record, the signs and it started to happen. Echo and the other labels kind of imploding, and you know, I mean, the business changing, and the labels having to change, and one label buying out the other one, different people coming in and changing things around. So we had two hits in a row, and we were getting ready to do another summer ballad. You know, I forget the song off the record, and that was going to be the big summer one that was going to, you know, we had all these tours lined up and shit, and just walked off stage one night, and they told us, hey, guys, we're going home. It was, record's done, you know. What do you mean it's done? We were just getting ready to do another single and video and stuff. Where we're not, because they want to make the next record. So we went and made the next record. Still didn't know what the fuck was going on. Had no clue. And you don't want to believe that stuff, you know. And we had a 8-record deal. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So we go to make the next record. We make the Strength record, which is like, for us at that time, and for a lot of, you know, bands and stuff like that in the rock and roll genre, that record there was like a masterpiece.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree.
And so we were, you know, we weren't making that record with the intentions of that it's gonna sit on a shelf. It's not gonna get pushed or anything, which it didn't at Echo, because they actually we were one of the things that built that President's label. And to take us out was to take him out and to take the label down, and that's what they did. Put us on a shelf, and then eventually even told us to put us on a shelf. And so we had to file a bankruptcy to get out of there, instead of sit there for another 6 records and waste 6 more killer records.
Right.
You know, that'll never get heard and shit. And so we were still shooting for it, and Baby Loves You could have been a hit, because it was starting to be just on our own, you know, just word of mouth and radio playing it on their own and stuff, and it could have been a hit. And that song, we had that since before New Thing and shit. That was like close to one of the first songs that Chip and I wrote together, and we had it in the set list all the time, because it was really easy to play.
Right.
It's really easy to sing and really easy to play, and catchy, and crowds dig it. It was a little simplistic for me as far as I was concerned, because I like getting a little more in depth in the song and stuff, but I recognized its potential. Yeah, it could have done something. We did that one we did that one live on TV too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that performance. So hey, you brought up an interesting point when you talk about when you get over to Arista with Clive. Why not change the name of the band, or why not just ditch the band, or just have you? Because like right now, I mean, and you've already alluded to this, Enuff Z'Nuff is associated with the 80s, right? And now we're in the 90s, and everything that was glam 80s is getting panned. Why not change the name?
Well, number one, first of all, that you can't shake anybody knowing or Enuff Z'Nuff. Changing the name, now we're getting ready to go. We had a deal then as Enuff Z'Nuff. We had another deal. Everything was fine. Like I said, we didn't know all of this shit was happening to us, but we could never have foreseen or envisioned that we were just going to completely be, you know, just turn into a complete failure and stuff in the business. It never occurred to us. We figured, well, you know, we were good enough that we would survive whatever hits us, you know. And so after the Arista thing, after that, we tried to. I had quit the band after the Arista record for a while, and started making what turned out to be the 7 record in Tweak. I started making that by myself, writing it and demoing it with Ricky Parent, who just got into the band then, and I was done with Chip and Derek and stuff. And then you get sucked back in when you got a killer record in the process. Where are you going to put it out? Who even knows who Donnie Vie is? You know, there ain't Enuff Z'Nuff has, you know, you can get a small deal with that. Who the fuck's Donnie Vie? You know what I mean? So, so that turned, you know, and Chip and them heard it. And, you know, of course, he got back into the fold, and they got interest in it. But originally we tried to push it as Chip and Donnie, which was changing the name of, and trying to lose the Enuff Z'Nuff stigmatism by going with Chip and Donnie, and with a totally toned down, natural look on the cover, stuff like that, and did put it out in Japan. But it didn't really fly here, and we got a different deal to make 2 records, which was 7 and Tweaked, because we had two records worth of shit, and it was one big session, one big period. But we just took we had 2 records worth of great songs. We took the half that were heavier and more darker, put those and made that into Tweaked, and took the other stuff, the lighter shit that was basically Chip and Donnie, and made that 7, because after that's, you know, like I said, all of a sudden you can get work still as an Enuff Z'Nuff. Yeah. You know, to start all over, and with the industry turning like it is, and all by yourself, really still not knowing what the fuck Donnie Vie, you know, or changing the name when everybody knows you're an Enuff Z'Nuff. It's like, you know, so that's basically the reason. And then you keep getting, you know, in order to eat and work and still get more of those and get shows and and shit like that. You can only get it as Enuff Z'Nuff as opposed to changing the name, which, you know what I mean, it's going and trying to find another deal and labels that don't even know what the fuck is up right now, you know what I mean?
Hey guys, this podcast takes a lot of time and effort. I want to do more in-depth projects on here, but I can't do it without your help. Just Google 80's Glam Metalcast on Anchor. Once there, hit the support button and you can donate 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. Your support will ensure that this podcast will be rocking out for years to come. Thanks for listening.
Well, luckily, a lot of that stuff blew over. I mean, by the time you get to the 2000s, the grunge thing was kind of over. So at least, you know, it seems like the hard rock and heavy metal got back into the scene and pretty much has been strong. You know, I mean, I don't know if hard rock and heavy metal will ever be like a commercial force like it was in the 80s, but at least it's not something that has to hide in the closet. You know what I mean? It's out there in the forefront again. So that's a positive thing.
Yeah, there's no like big rock stars anymore though, you know,
No.
like not like a Led Zeppelin or Aerosmith or those kind of guys, because there's not the whole persona. There's just the heavy metal records, you know, and nobody gives a fuck what they look like and stuff, and they basically all look like the same record, same band.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them, and very similar sounds and shit. But the image is very important in the music business.
Yeah.
Even with Nirvana and stuff like that, it was image. They were very image focused. It was just a different image. You know what I mean? And it affected and changed the whole world. Started wearing the ripped up jeans and those tennis shoes and the big sweaters and shit like that. So that was an image too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So image is important. When you got the guys in, you know, the metal bands and stuff, most of them will wear those, you know, those long shorts and combat boots or something like that, or jeans and t-shirts and stuff. And so, you know, they have beards and, you know, long, scraggly hair, shit like that. That, you know, I mean, there's no image there. Plus, there's no melodies in those songs. Right. You know what I mean? So all you get is a, you know, certain genre of angst. You know what I mean? That just angst and, you know, that whole attitude and stuff, that love that stuff, but you don't get a lot of, you know, you can't hook any of there's no hits.
No.
I mean, I love it though. Some of them I really love them. Like I love Pantera.
Oh yeah.
They used to be good friends of ours too, and Daryl was a good friend, you know.
Oh, super killer stuff. But you know what's weird about music today is that everything's kind of in these pockets. Like before, when you think of like the 80s, you had MTV and everybody was kind of, you didn't have the internet, so you couldn't go on a deep dive and try to find something. You had to kind of go with what was on the radio, what was on MTV. So we had these movements, you know what I mean? And now I don't feel like you're ever going to really have that movement again because everybody's isolated in these pockets. You know, if you, like you said, if you like metal, you can go online and you can go on Spotify and you can go down a wormhole of Swedish metal or you know, or glam metal, whatever kind of metal you want. But at least back in the day,
oversaturation,
yeah,
oversaturation for absolutely no cost whatsoever, and anybody can make one of those videos. Anyone can put their music up. It's just the same as Taylor Swift can on the YouTube channel. It won't get as much views and stuff, but it's oversaturation. There's always been a million bands in the world, always been new artists, always been this and that, but they weren't the ones that were discovered or chosen or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the music business was a whole different, it wasn't just that. It was a whole different attitude and a whole different set of people that started that music business. And, you know, and everything good about it, you know, really happened within 20 years, you know, and then kind of, you know, went out a lot of this. I mean, just the computer, the whole internet, everything just, you know, really fucked everybody. And Metallica knew that in the beginning, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's why they were in court. They were in court and battling and shit like that. They knew what was coming and they were right. And, you know, a lot of other people don't think about that shit. And, you know, and there used to be mystery and mystique and with the artist.
Yeah.
You know, you have a magazine, you could read an interview with who could say what he wanted to and go through publicists and stuff like that. And the only thing you really knew about, like even in the 70s, the only thing you knew about a band was the picture on the album cover.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It really was. And so everything was controlled. So these things were bigger than life, you know, and then once an artist gets bigger life, a lot of times he'll become bigger than life, that energy and stuff, you know, and really turn it on.
Yeah.
You know, so, but with the, you know, it all on, you can't sell records anymore. You know, this rock market really doesn't get record deals. There's really not, you know, there's no really rock clubs. There's nothing, you know, because it's all this new shit. Because in order to get views on YouTube, you know, you got to have advertising and stuff. And so now it's the same thing. The ones that can afford the big advertising are the label people and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, you know, you hit on a great point, man, about the mystery of things, because now, even think about a movie. You know, the day they start making the movie, you're going to see pictures from the set. You're going to see, you know what I mean? You know everything about the movie before it comes out. Same thing with an album. You know the day they're going in the studio. They're sending out clips on social media of them, you know, recording the album. Like, we know everything. There's, like, nothing we don't know. And back in the day, like you said, you were just getting it, whatever they wanted to give you. That's all you knew. And you're right. It takes away the legendariness of it, the mystique. It's totally crazy. When you really think back to the way things used to be, man, things are way different. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing special about it anymore. Okay. Yeah, there's nothing really special about the music industry or from my personal, you know, but then, you know, what my grandfather used to say about my music, you know, it's like, I don't get that shit. I like this and this and that. And that was like, you know, the Frank Sinatra and shit like that. So, you know, it could very well be that I'm that. But in my opinion, though, you know, there's just not those real legendary rock stars coming out anymore. There's just that hip hop and that new sound, and listen, I don't even know how to make that sound. I don't even know. I would try to cop that production style on something to see how I did.
Right.
You know, but I can't figure out how to do the head shit. I would need a producer, one of those guys, a couple of black guys working with me.
Get some DJs.
I mean, let's try to, right. But because, you know, there's basically only a handful of guys probably writing everybody's stuff that's out there and producing it and shit like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's another factory.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I had a great time talking with you. Anything you want to say to your fans in closing?
Yeah, everything I do for you. And thank you all for all the love and all the support. And I'll continue to deliver and not let you down.
All right, Donnie. Thanks a lot, man. Have a great night.
Thanks, man.
Well, that was a great chat with Donnie. Remember, you can support the podcast through Anchor. Visit the 80's Glam Metalcast on Anchor and hit support. If you donate at the highest level, I'll invite you on the podcast for a chat. Thanks for all your support. Rock on!